Well, good morning, everybody. Welcome to PhotoJoseph's Photo Moment. This is a very odd and very late start. Had a bit of a weird thing this morning. So I'm trying to go live to YouTube now instead of to Facebook. We're going to give this a shot and just see how audience building, audience retention, engagement, all that good stuff is, how it compares. I've been doing Facebook for a long time. Honestly, the live viewership there is very rarely significant. And so I figured we would just give YouTube a try for this and see what would happen. And I've gone live to YouTube a bunch of times before, but for some reason this morning, nothing wanted to work. So I used my video hardware like I quite often do, and I went through the standard YouTube setup as well as the manual setting up the RTMP server setup, and neither of them worked. What was really weird was I was seeing on my YouTube dashboard, I got a green light that said you're live. It said the stream health is great, everything's looking good, but there was no picture. The picture just showed offline. Tried a couple things, rebooted the hardware, nothing works. So then I just fired up my Wirecast software and hit live on that, and boom, straight to it. So we'll chalk one up for the Wirecast guys today. I don't know what's going on. I was about to blame YouTube for this one, but apparently something else is afoot. Anyway, we're live now, and that is what matters. So today's photo moment is actually a response, a direct response, direct answer to a question that a viewer had posted. So their question, let's just throw this thing up here full screen. Their question, this is Mr. Paul Ost, says, I have a question for you. I was about to invest in a DSLR, currently have a couple of Panasonic Bridge cameras, awesome. My interests are nature and wildlife photography, and I'm off to South Africa in September of 2017. But this camera excites me. Would this be a good buy for me? And by this camera, what he's talking about is the LUMIX GH5 that was just announced. There have been about a bajillion videos on the interwebs about him, and it's kind of awesome, and I can't wait to get mine. So Paul is asking if the GH5 would be a good camera for him as a wildlife / nature photographer who is specifically going off to South Africa in less than a year, September of this year, 2017. And I responded back and I said, yeah, but let me address this live because I think there will be some fun comparisons to make. Now, obviously, let's put this part out of, well, a couple things to get out of the way. So first off, DSLRs are clearly awesome, right? You buy your Nikons, your Canons, you spend the money, get the gear, you're gonna get phenomenal image quality. This is not in question. You will get higher resolution files than you will get off of the mirrorless cameras. That is not in question. But beyond that, you gotta figure out if it's really worth it or not, because you're gonna have a significant cost increase and a significant weight increase when you compare the two systems. So that's what we're gonna look at today. Size and weight, compared the two side by side. Now, as many of you know, I am a LUMIX luminary, so I'm sponsored by Panasonic. They have me talk about these things, and so I am clearly biased towards the Panasonic mirrorless setup. With that said, I will take off my LUMIX hat for a moment and say you've got two Micro Four Thirds mirrorless systems. You've got the Panasonic LUMIX system and you have the Olympus system. Both are excellent systems. This new GH5 though pretty much kicks everybody's butt, so let's just, we'll just say that. And then in the mirrorless space, you also have your Fujis and you have your Sonys. Fujis have slightly bigger sensors, equal slightly bigger bodies and lenses. Sonys have bigger again sensors. They're going full frame on their sensors, which means that the lenses essentially have to be the same size as full DSLR. So you're not gaining a lot. Now I know the Sony cameras are fantastic, and they're all fantastic, right? Let me just say that too. It doesn't matter what you buy. These cameras are all amazing these days, right? They're just incredible image quality. Guarantee you're going to be happy with whatever you put your money into. If you're looking at mirrorless, I am going to very strongly recommend the LUMIX gear. The GH5 is a phenomenal camera, and especially since he's doing the whole safari, doing the wildlife thing, autofocus tracking, motion tracking has never been the strongest suit of mirrorless, any mirrorless system, but the new GH5 with their new depth from defocusing system is phenomenal. You are getting, according to Sean, who's one of the Panasonic guys, in all of his public videos, he's talking about the speed and accuracy of autofocus when shooting stills. One of the things he likes to talk about is did some shots with his dog running straight towards him, 9 frames per second, every frame in focus. That's kind of remarkable. Okay, so there's that part of it. So let's start comparing gear side by side. So let's see, I have this set up. I've got a little B&H page up here so that I can do a little side-by-side comparisons. We get two B&H windows side by side. We're going to start, well, look at that. The GH5 is right here on top here, so we got our little to, let's say a Canon, just because I know, I'm going to use Canon as an example because I know it fairly well. 5D, what's the latest? 5D Mark IV. Okay, so top of the line Canon versus top of the line Lumix. All right, so straight up, here's a huge cost difference. Now, I know, okay, just, there's a lot of differences between these two cameras. The big advantage, again, of the Canon system is you're going to get significantly more resolution, especially since this one, what is this thing? Like 8 billion, 30 megapixel. I mean, okay, it's kind of big. So that is significant. The Lumix camera is 20 megapixel, which is a nice step up from the standard 16 megapixel that we had before. If you are really trying to decide between these two cameras just based on features, I'm going to let you do that on your own separately. But because there are definitely feature advantages to both sides of them, the primary one on the Canon side being that resolution. So if you really need that 30 megapixels, then there's nothing I can do about that. But we are going to be comparing cost and weight. This is what we're looking at today. Okay, so back to this. Right, so cost, well, $3,500 for the Canon versus $2,000 for the Lumix. So that is a significant difference there, right? That's big. I mean, you can almost buy 2 Lumix bodies for the cost of a Canon body. All right, so now let's look under specs. I don't know if they do the size and weight here like they do for all the lenses. Let's see, physical, flash, AV recording, performance, power, physical. There we go, near the bottom. All right. So on the left, again, we have the Canon. On the right, we've got the Lumix. So dimensions, size-wise, let's see. So 6 inches, we're going to round up. So we're going to call this 6 inches wide. This is 5.5 inches wide, so a little bit smaller. 4.5 inches tall, 4 inches tall, a little bit smaller. 3 inches deep, 3.5 inches deep. So basically half an inch smaller on all 4 sides. So not a massive difference in size there. Weight difference, also not a massive difference. 1.76 pounds or 800 grams versus 1.6 pounds or 725 grams. So that's negligible. The size of the GH5 has actually increased a little bit, and the weight has increased a little bit from the GH4, which was already one of the biggest, if not the biggest, Lumix camera of the setup, of the lineup. So we're not seeing a huge weight and size comparison difference between the two. Huge price difference, but not huge weight and size. If you're a GH4 shooter, by the way, one of the comparisons that I've seen, the difference between the GH4 and the GH5 weighs about 2 batteries more. So if you were to take a GH4 and add 2 additional batteries to it, that would be the size of, rather the weight of the GH5. So just one of those things that I've seen out there on the interwebs. Okay, so size, weight, not a huge difference, subtle difference. Price, massive difference. But now let's get, I should also say then, that if you do buy into the Lumix system, that GH5 is the biggest and heaviest camera and body, right, of the lineup. But you can also buy a much smaller camera like the GX85, which is really small. Let's actually just put that up here side by side real quick. And then you have a body to go along with your setup that'll use all the same lenses, that is a much smaller system. So let's see here, Lumix GX85. There's the one. We'll pull this guy up, and now this is a $700 body, so this is a much lower end camera, but still an absolutely phenomenal body. This is one of my favorites. This is my travel camera. This is the take everywhere camera. So this guy is scrolling. Physical. Wait, package weight. Oh, that's box. Hold on. Package info. Did I go too far? Physical. There it is. So 4.8 versus 5.5, so smaller. 2.8 versus 4, so an inch smaller. 1.7 versus 3.4, almost half the depth. And then the weight of this is 426 grams versus 725, nearly half the weight. So significant difference there between the two. So that's something to keep in mind. I don't know what the smallest Canon is. I guess you could buy like a Rebel or something, but they're going to be smaller and lighter, but you know. Anyway, so there's one of those things. Okay, now let's look at lenses. Lenses are where we get really interested. I want to look at three different lenses. He says wildlife and nature photography. So we're going to look at a long telephoto, we're going to look at a macro, and then we're going to look at a general purpose. Actually, reverse the order. We're going to start with the general purpose. The general purpose, carry everywhere lens that's kind of a first for everyone to get on a high quality lens is going to be your 24-70 f2.8 equivalent. Okay, so let's compare these two. Let's start off with the Canon side. So we're going to look for the Canon 24-70. Make sure we get the latest version of that, and then do the same thing here. Lumix Now the Lumix is going to be called the 12-35 because remember, and I'm going to show you here, there's a brand new one that was just announced. I didn't even know until I started looking at this morning. On the Lumix side, because it's a micro four thirds system, smaller sensor, you have what we call a crop sensor, crop factor of 2 to 1. So your lens, whatever your lens is, whatever it says on the lens, you double that to get your 35mm equivalent. So Canon being full frame, a 24-70 lens acts like a 24-70 lens on a full frame body. You put that same lens on a APS-C body, like one of the Rebels, and it becomes 1.6 crop factor. So 24 times 1.6, whatever that's like 40 something, to like 90-ish or 100, around 100 millimeters. So that's on the Canon side. On the Lumix side, on the Panasonic side, because it's micro four thirds, it's 2 to 1, so a 24-70 equivalent is going to be a 12-35, exactly half. It makes it really easy. So that's what we're comparing here, is equivalent focal length, equivalent aperture. So here we go. On the left, Canon 24-70 f2.8. On the right, the Lumix 12-35 or 24-70 f2.8. Also Model 2, this is brand new. I did not know this was coming out until I just saw this morning. New item coming soon, end of March. So there is a rev to this lens. This lens is priced at $1,000. The equivalent on the Canon is $1,750. So 75% more to get that one. So that's a pretty significant difference there, right? Pretty significant. Now, that said, let's see here. That 12-35 f2.8 on the Lumix side, that's the brand new one. This means you'll be able to pick up a used, and I mean, the same could be said on the Canon side, of course, pick up a used Mark I lens, the original lens, pretty soon here for probably a really, really good price. I'm sure you can pick up a used one now for a good price, but with the Mark II coming out, you know there's going to be a flood on the market of used ones, so that's something to consider as well. Okay, so there's the price comparison, $1,750 versus $1,000, pretty significant. Now let's take a look at the size and weight. So go to specs and both sides. Where we go, physical and physical. So here we go. On the left, it is, see here, rounding, so it's at 3.5 inches wide, let's call it 4.5 inches long, 3 inches, less than 3 inches, a little over 2.5 inches wide, less than 3 inches long. So quite a bit shorter, under 3 inches, over 4, or almost 4.5. And then the weight difference, significant. This is where you're seeing your huge differences. Almost 11 ounces or 300 grams, 28 ounces or 800 grams. So that is very significant. Not quite triple, but pretty close to it. So that's a huge difference. And this is one of the smaller lenses. So we're talking about a significant difference between the size and weight and cost for the equivalent lens. Okay, that's the first lens. Second lens is macro. If you're doing nature, you're going to love to do the macro. So let's check that out. On the left, we're going to go for Canon. I'm going to type in Canon macro, and that's going to show us a 100mm lens. So go ahead and bring this back up. So let's see here. That is, while that's loading, I'll just get this one going. Lumix 45. Where is it? 45-2.8. Where is this lens? I had a hard time finding this earlier in here. 45-2.8. There it is. That's the one we want. Okay, so here we go. On the left, we've got a 100mm f2.8 macro with image stabilization built into it. On the right, we have the Leica, the Lumix Leica. And whenever you see Leica on there, you know it's the highest quality lenses of the Lumix lineup. They're Leica glass in these Panasonic bodies, and they're phenomenal lenses, no question about it. So on the right here, we've got a 45mm. So remember, the equivalent of 100 would be a 50 on this side. There isn't a 50, but there's a 45, so we're close to it. Also f2.8, also has the built-in optical image stabilization. Price are almost identical. $800 on the right, $800 on the left. So there you go. So that's fair. So now let's compare size and weight. Let's go specs on here and specs on here. And we're going down to the physical and going down to the physical. All right, long, it is almost 5 inches long. 2.5 inches long, literally half the length. And then the weight, 1.4 pounds or 625 grams, 8 ounces, 225 grams. So what is that, like a third? Yeah, that's a third of the weight. So same price, half the length, a third of the weight. That's a significant difference. Significant. Now, before I go to the next one, because this is going to be the killer, why does this matter so much? Well, obviously, you've got you pick up a camera and a lens, and one is heavier than another. Okay, fine, so it's heavier. What of it? We got to consider things like you're carrying this around all day on your shoulder. You're not probably just carrying that camera and lens, you're probably carrying maybe another backup body, a couple other lenses. This weight adds up. So now you're talking a physically larger bag that weighs a lot more that you're carrying around on your body all day long. And frankly, I don't care how old you are, how young you are, all that weight adds up and it starts to suck after a while carrying this around. So there's that side of it. The cost difference we've hit so far is phenomenal. If you had a fixed budget, let's say you're really going out, you're gonna spend $10,000 on toys for this this tour that you in a new camera setup. You can buy a lot more for that $10,000 on the LUMIX side than you can on the Canon side. So you're gonna get a lot more gear for your money. So there's that part of it. Or if you don't have a fixed budget, you just have a specific, you know you're gonna buy a body and 3 lenses. Well, those a body and 3 lenses are going to cost a lot more on the Canon side than on the LUMIX side. So it's huge cost difference, huge cost comparison here. It's really, really worth mentioning. Okay, now let's get into the big lens. So if you're doing safaris, you're gonna want a long lens. I mean, right? You need a long lens. You can rent. This is also worth mentioning. It is absolutely possible to rent. You'll have to make sure that your rental house will allow you to take the lens out of the country, but you can absolutely rent, and that is a really good option because frankly, safari is kind of a once in a lifetime thing. You really want to spend huge money on a lens you only need for that? Probably not. If you want it for everything else, then obviously spend the money on it. But if you're just going to use it once, rent the thing. Okay, so that out of the way. We're going to start with the LUMIX side this time because there is one particular lens that is a glorious lens. It is one of the Leica lenses. It is a 100 to 400 millimeter, which means it's a 200 to 800 millimeter equivalent, and it has incredible stabilization built into it. Now remember, when a LUMIX lens has stabilization built into it, the stabilization doesn't end there. When you pair it with a GH5 body or the GX8 body that has in-body stabilization, you get dual. So you get stabilization of the body and the lens put together. You get what's called dual stabilization, dual stabilization. And then it's amazing how long of a lens you can hold at how slow of a shutter speed handheld. Incredible. Okay, so we're going to start with that lens because that is the one that we know we want to find on the LUMIX side. So we go 100 to 400 LUMIX. Let's do this the other way around. LUMIX 100 to 400. There it is. LUMIX G. That's not right. Leica. Let's do Leica. I think then that'll find it. Leica. There it is. Panasonic Leica. They don't put the LUMIX name when it's a Leica one. That's why. Okay, Panasonic Leica. This is the 100 to 400, so again, it's a 200 to 800 equivalent. f4 to 6.3, so it is a variable aperture, and it is, fair enough. It's a little slow, but I mean, it's 6.3, 800 millimeter at f6.3. Okay, price $1,800. All right, so let's see what we can find on the Canon side. So I'm going to first show you the Canon 100 to 400, same focal length lens, which also is a variable aperture, f4, 5, so a little bit slower to start to 5.6, a little bit faster on the end. But let's remember, this is truly 100 to 400 versus 200 to 800. Okay, so double the focal length here. This price, $2,000. This price, $1,800, so not a massive difference. If we compare physical specs on it, let's see what we find. We go to specs, physical on the left, and where to go? Physical on the right. See, length 7.6 inches, a little over 7.5. Length just under 7, so not significantly shorter. Weight 3.5 versus 2, so pretty significant weight difference. 1.6 kilo versus just under a kilo, so pretty significant weight difference. Okay, so we're talking here a little more money, a little more weight, same focal length until you factor in the whole crop factor thing, and that's where this becomes significant. So if you wanted to get that 800 millimeter shot, you've got that lion that's really far away. You've got like this. This is shot at the zoo, so it's cheating. But this is shot at the zoo, either at or close to 800 millimeters, handheld with this 100-400 Leica lens. I don't own it. I had it on loan for a little while. In the shade, low light, unbelievable to be able to handhold 800 millimeter and get a perfectly sharp shot. That is phenomenal right there. Okay, but if you wanted that 800, that means you'd be cropping into your picture, right? So you're starting with a 30 megapixel image. You're going to have to crop half of that out, which it's not going to bring it to 15. It probably is going to bring it about to 20 megapixel, I think. I could be totally wrong on that, but I think that's right. that means you are basically not getting any benefit, any resolution benefit with this lens versus the LUMIX one. But you're talking about a huge, massively difference in weight and cost for the whole setup so far. And look at that. We got our Florian popped in live. Awesome. There's a few people watching live. Comment, folks, that are watching live. Florian says, join mid-session. I shoot Canon. Are there adapters for the Leica lenses for Canon? I have no idea. I really have no idea. If there are adapters, then certainly you wouldn't get the benefits of the high-speed autofocus and all that. So please do. And oh, Sean, thank you. Congratulations on 1,000 subscribers. I hit 1K over the weekend. Yes. So thank you for that, buddy. Okay. So let's finish this discussion up here. So we've got the 100 to 400 Canon lens, 100 to 400 that's actually a 200 to 800 on the Leica, on the LUMIX side, Leica. And if you were to crop the picture to get the same focal length thing, you're going to be about the same pixels. Very, very interesting, isn't it? So Mike, thank you very much for that as well. Look at that. Now everybody's chatting live. I love it. So now let's see what it would take to actually get that 800 millimeter lens on the Canon side. This is where it gets funny. Okay, Canon 800. Look at that. There is an 800 millimeter lens. It is an 800 millimeter f5.6. So a little bit faster than this 800 at 6.3, and it is only $13,000. That's it. That's it. I got $13,000 and you got the same thing, which, let me say, you cannot handheld. In fact, here, look at this. This is kind of funny. We're going to do this. I'm going to go, oops, I did not want to do that. I wanted to, oh no, I lost my lens. Canon 800 millimeter, where'd you go? Here we go. I want to search for this lens, copy that. Let's Google search this guy. I want to find pictures of people using, here we go, using this lens. There's that lens in use. To give you an idea of just how big this thing is, that's, yeah, that's huge. That is a monstrous, it's a beautiful lens. Don't get me wrong, this is a beautiful lens. But it's, what was it, $12,000, $13,000? What did I say? $13,000. That's a lot of money. And you cannot handhold it. So, I mean, just forget about handholding it. So this is a significant difference. So for your safari goer, a GH5 with the 100 to 400 millimeter lens. Let's do that. Let's do, hold on, let me kind of change my windows up a little bit here. Close this guy out. All right, let's go back to this. We'll just do it this way. To start, let's start filling up the shopping cart. So we're going to buy this lens, okay, and we're going to buy that GH5 because it's awesome. So pre-order. I don't know if that's going to add it to the same cart. Hopefully it does. Okay, pre-order. And then we probably want that 24 to 70. We may as well get the brand new one, right? Because we're buying, we're shopping, we're going to do this right. So Mark II version of this lens. So that's $1,000. We'll add that to the cart. We want that macro lens, right? So like a 45 millimeter. There's that one. That's why I couldn't find it earlier because I was searching for LUMIX, not Leica. Here we go, 800. So we're going to add that. And then I'm going to add, let's see, one of my favorite lenses, which is the Leica 15 millimeter. 15, here we go. This lens is a 30 millimeter equivalent. I absolutely adore this lens. Really, really, really nice. $550. It's probably the cheapest thing we've added so far. So there's that. And let's, well, we'll just do that. Okay, 4 lenses. And where are we at? We are at $6,000. So $6,000 to get a GH5. You're probably gonna want an extra couple of batteries, but you know we'll forget about that stuff for now. For a GH5 with a good everyday 24 to 70 equivalent zoom, a 90 millimeter macro equivalent, very, very nice macro lens, by the way. Love this guy. And the 15, oh, I forgot to add the big Leica. Okay, let's add that in there. The Leica 100 to 400. Sean saying, purchasing an electric car or a new lens, tough choice. Yeah, right. He's talking about the Canon one. Okay, so 1800, and was that already in my cart? I guess it was already in my cart. Did I just scroll past it earlier? Oh yeah, it was at the bottom. Already, look at that, $6,000, and I've already got that lens in there. Okay, so $6,000, you're getting all these lenses and that body. That's kind of phenomenal, especially considering you got to double that price tag just to get the one lens from the Canon. We're not going to add the Canon stuff to the cart because that would just be embarrassing. So there you go. So to Mr. Paul, I believe it was, who asked this question in the first place, Mr. Paul Ost, who said, should he be looking at this instead of a DSLR? I think the answer is a resounding yes. If you have any follow-up questions to this, hit it in the comments. We'll put links to all of these lenses and bodies in the comments here on YouTube as well. And of course, if you are going to go shopping, please use these links because they're affiliate links, and I make like a nickel off of it. It helps keep the lights on around here. All right, folks, that's it. I'm going to bail out of here. I'm late for a meeting because we got such a late start here. Thank you very much for your time, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.